What's going on, everybody? We are live. We got episode number 72 of the Club and Sub podcast. Tonight, going to be talking about Ketlin Vieira versus Misha Tate. Uh, okay card. Some good fights on here. It's a bit better than the last couple weeks, to be honest. And I think there's some decent-ish betting angles on it. Uh, as of right now, you have me, John, at MMA Fox. I will be joined, I think, by Luke, but I have not heard from him. I threw an invite out to Andrew to see if he wants to hop in here. But if not, I'm going to take you through the podcast myself tonight. So we got a solo club and sub at the moment. Hopefully, we'll be getting joined by Luke. But as usual, guys, we're brought to you by betonline.ag for a 50% bonus up to your first $1,000 deposit. Use the promo code CLUBSUB. And yeah, guys, if you like the show, please drop a like and subscribe. I guess while I'm waiting, before we get into it, just touch briefly on last week. Mediocre week across the board. I went 2-1 on my bets, plus 0.99 units. I think I hit on Marcos Rogerio de Lima. I hit on Andrea Lee, and I was very wrong on Mark Chikasi. So while I'm waiting for the beginning, I guess I'll just jump right into it here. So, starting off, first fight of the night, we got Luana Pinheiro taking on the Sam Page, Sam Hughes. And I'll be honest, before I saw a line for this fight, or I should say before I taped this fight, I saw the line on Pinheiro drop at minus 350, and I was just like, this is fucking nuts. I had Randa Marcos for a decent amount against Pinheiro, pardon me. And I thought that she was a decent side there. I don't really rate Pinheiro's grappling a whole lot based on what I've seen regionally. And when I say grappling, I don't mean her wrestling. Obviously, she's got a great judo game. Her throws are pretty crazy. But when she's been on the mat, it's gotten pretty ugly in the past. Even on top of Marcos, if you go watch that fight, she didn't really seem to have a whole lot of process as to what she wanted to do there. And so, I'm still very, very skeptical in general regarding, Pinheiro. And the only time she's been out of the first round in her career, she's gassed out. But that said, I went and taped Sam Hughes, and man, she's rough. Sam Hughes brings back nothing but nightmares for me. She's the one, there was that mispriced line on FanDuel that was about an over under 1.5 at even money. And I actually max bet that. And then obviously that was stopped by the doctor. So not so fun. But yeah, she's just not very good at anything. She's got a decent jab, I guess, but nothing else I'd really rate. Her wrestling isn't very good. Her jiu-jitsu isn't very good. I think the only real attribute I can give her that's UFC level is kind of toughness. And the truth is, maybe that could be enough here. If she can weather the early storm from Pinheiro, who really doesn't hold anything back and throws 100% into everything, I guess she could take over the fight late. Maybe you get a live entry into her here. But I guess for me, the problem is, even though I don't really trust Pinheiro's gas tank and I don't trust almost anything about her game, even gassed out Pinheiro, I kind of think could take rounds off Hughes. And that's really what kills me here and why I don't really feel comfortable making a play on Hughes. Maybe if we see enough of a cardio dump after round one where she's clearly on fumes, we jump in live on Hughes. But nothing I've seen in tape makes me confident in her or makes me think the line is very off, to be honest. There will be a time to fade Luana Pinheiro in the UFC. I thought it was going to be with Jessica Penne this week. I really, really, really liked Penne. Unfortunately, that time is not today. And so, no bet for me. I think Pinheiro is going to probably beat her. I guess keep an eye on the live line. It's possible she gasses out here. But, nothing I'm too particularly passionate about. Next up, we have the man formerly known as Yilan Shah. He is now going by Shah Yilan Noordenbiek. I don't even know. I'm just going to call him Yilan Shah. He's coming off a loss to Joshua Kulabau. He's taking on Sean Soriano, who is coming off a very weird fight with Christos Giagos where he was tapped out. Just looking at the fight, I don't really, really see anywhere that Shah causes many issues for Soriano. He's not a UFC level fighter. Kulabau made easy work of him, and I believe was like minus 500 there. To be honest, I couldn't lay this number with Soriano just because, his general fight IQ, but I actually think the line might even be a bit short here. Shah's not really UFC level. Soriano is and has had competitive fights at the UFC competition. I don't know. There's not really a lot to really talk about with this fight. Soriano should really take care of him. I saw some people talking about a plus 2,000 sub line for Shah that came out earlier in the week. And I think that's a reasonable that's a reasonable play if you get that much, just because we've seen now Sean Soriano will find a way to put himself into anything if people attack it. But yeah, I mean, this shouldn't present any issues for him at all. Moving on, we got Cody Durden taking on Aori Kulang. Kulang is coming off a fight with Jeff Molina, which was actually fireworks at UFC 261. That was the Usman Masvidal 2 card. First crowd back in front, or first fight back in front of a crowd, I should say. And that was a close fight. Aori got kind of slowed down late in the fight, but he showed a high volume in that fight. He showed a willingness to wrestle, which I appreciate. But honestly, of all the Chinese fighters, other than like Wei Li and I guess Song Yadong, he's probably one of the better ones. We haven't seen a whole lot of good stuff come out of the China PI, but he seems to have a process. He throws a lot of volume. He attempts takedowns, stuff you want to back if you're betting on fights. But I do think he's kind of up against it here. Durden's making his second fight at flyweight, I believe, but the guy spent most of his career at 35. He was a pretty credentialed high school wrestler. He is a solid wrestler. He's got a decent submission game and a decent back take. On the feet, I would favor Aori, to be completely honest, but I don't expect Durden to try to keep this standing very long. And I do think, he's going to be able to get takedowns whenever he wants them here. In my opinion, anyway, he should be able to lock down top position here and either hold him down or hunt for a sub. I've seen Aori put in some bad spots on the mat before, and I just don't think he's fought a grappler on Durden's level yet. In some respects, I guess Molina is. We saw that last fight, but Molina's not really a wrestler, whereas Durden actually has the tools to put him on the mat. And so I picked up some early Durden money, around evens. Where it is now, I'm a bit more skeptical of, because Durden does use a lot of energy. So playing him past minus 150 is kind of dangerous. To be honest, if anything, I actually think maybe keep an eye on a live line for Quilang here, just because we know Durden's going to come out. He's going to keep a very, very healthy pace, and he's going to attempt a lot of takedowns. So if he doesn't have the kind of success with his control game that I expected him to, or I expect him to, I should say, it is plausible he could slow down in this fight. So yeah, it's an interesting fight. It's one of the more, it's kind of going under the radar because, I mean, in my opinion, Durden's either going to run right through him, or it's going to end up being a pretty scrambly and pretty crazy fight, which could be pretty fun. But yeah, I mean, if you got Durden down at minus 125 or better, I think that's a decent bet. I'd pass him up here. I do think he should win this fight. Looking at it from a prop perspective, I think, if you wanted to get action in on it right now, I think Durden winning by decision here at plus 150 isn't horrible. But again, that presupposes that Quilang's submission game is good, and I'm just not so sure about that. So yeah, moving on, we got our fourth fight of the night. We got Fares Ziam taking on Terrence McKinney. This fight's kind of hilarious, and it's one that I have like moderate interest in, where I haven't made a bet yet, but I am considering making a play on Ziam, if I'm being honest. I was really, really hoping to get, plus money on him here, and he's down to minus 120. But ultimately, there's a lot of people who like McKinney here, and, I understand why. If you watch his tape, he is an explosive wrestler. Obviously, he's got about 1 million first-round finishes. You can see what would lure people into, wanting to back McKinney here, especially after how Ziam nearly got put out at the end of the Vendramini fight in his last fight. But watching the McKinney tape a little deeper, I don't know, man. I get it. I get he has all these first-round finishes, but if you contextualize him a bit, I mean, they're kind of weird. His last 4 fights, you have 2 head kicks that were both pretty much off the top of the head. You had him KO a guy in guard, and then obviously the one-punch KO for Vola. And I'm not saying he doesn't hit hard, but to me, it's almost a casino equivalent of a guy stepping up to a craps table and just rolling 4 rolls in a row right off the bat there. Just, again, I'm not saying it's complete luck. Obviously, he's dynamic, but I think it is very fortunate in a lot of right place, right time type of situations. If you go to some of his other fights where he has had standing exchanges, to me, he seems very, very, very hittable on the feet. Brick Squad mentioned it. He's always falling over on his head kicks. And if you look at that, I mean, it's very disturbing to me. And then if you go even back to the Woodson fight, it's kind of funny because I remember when Woodson came into the UFC, taping him and being like, holy fuck, did this guy get lucky? He was getting ragdolled and then landed a flying knee. And it's funny how, like, you remember things differently and contextualize stuff differently, right? If you're taping for different people. Because when I was taping this for McKinney, it's like, yeah, he looked pretty good in round 1. He takes Woodson down over and over, pretty much controls and wins the round easy. You watch him go back to the stool though, and he's breathing fairly deep there. Concerningly so. Comes back out for round 2. You see him try to telegraph a takedown right away. There's no drive through it at all. It's actually a decent level change, but there's just no push. Does it again, no push. Third time goes for it again, and Woodson lands the flying knee. And it's like when I first watched it a couple of years ago, I was like, oh man, he just got unlucky. But no, I think he was slowing down pretty precipitously after the first round. And in the second round, you could see he just wasn't setting anything up. You could see he was hittable there for Woodson. Yeah, I don't really see. I don't see this dominant fighter in McKinney. I'll put it to you that way. He's obviously explosive. He's a good athlete, but he's got holes. And I don't think, for him to justify being near evens with Ziam personally, I think he's got to be able to wrestle hard for 15. I'm pretty confident he can't do that. On top of which, so let's talk about Fares Ziam for a second. Honestly, Ziam seems whatever. He's fairly low volume. I worry a bit about him getting stuck in the clinch in fights. If you go back to the Don Madge fight, it's probably one of the worst fights in UFC history, literally. It's just the two of them clinching for 15 minutes pretty much. But aside from those issues, when he gets taken down, he will look to work up. He will look to wrestle back a bit. And at distance, he's just a superior striker to McKinney in just about every way. He measures distance a lot better. He's got a good jab. He's a solid boxer. The guy who was in K1 when he was 18, look, could he get put out here? Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's McKinney's game. But I really, really, really don't think he's going, unless he gets KO'd, I don't think he's going to lose minutes to McKinney here. I think he's a much better striker, which to me means his path is really going to be on the mat. And as I mentioned, I really don't think McKinney can sustain that pace necessary for 15 minutes. And so I think Ziam's a fairly deserved favorite in this spot. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really want to lay minus 120, but I may. I don't know. I feel pretty strongly that Ziam should win this fight unless he gets, memed early in it again. So yeah, I like Ziam. Moving on, we got Lupita Godinez. She's taking on Loma Lookboonmee. This is a good fight, and I have a pretty big bet here on Lupi, to be honest with you. Tristan saying Andrew. I'll add Andrew. He wants. I think he does want to come on. So we'll see. But yeah, I like Lupi a good bit here. So I mean, basically, it's kind of funny, again, the way people kind of color certain fighters. To be honest with you, like Loma, I think you hear her talked about and raved about on Twitter as this big prospect who, it's really too bad she's not bigger or whatever. If there was an atomweight division, she'd be a contender. But it's looking at her fight, I don't really see it at all, if I'm being completely honest. She has a very good clinch game. I'll give her that. When she can get fights in the clinch, she can land shots, she can land knees, she can land elbows. But, outside of that, when you watch Loma at distance, it's really just the occasional low kick and the occasional body kick, and her trying to find the clinch. I mean, that's really it. Her boxing is basically non-existent. I touched on earlier Sam Hughes and how bad, Sam Hughes is. Sam Hughes was basically touching her literally anytime she let her hands go. Had Hughes spent more time trying to just box her instead of trying to cage push her, getting stuck in a clinch and getting beaten up there, I actually think she wins that fight. I don't want to say at a favorite clip, but at a pretty fucking strong clip. She touched her with the jab anytime she let her hands go. And you go back even further to the Angela Hill fight. Now, I don't want to put too much emphasis on the Angela Hill fight, but Angela Hill was doing the exact same thing. Pretty much anytime they were at range, was touching her up with ease. And so I have not seen any footage of Loma looking good boxing. And then so on the other side, well, actually, you'll stick with Loma for a second. And then you want to talk about her grappling. No one has really proactively grappled her in the UFC to date. I got Andrew Gambas. He's joining me here, replacing Luke for the night. Andrew, what's going on, man?
Yo, can you hear me?
You're on mute, homie. Anyway, now you're on mute again. You're still on mute. There you go. I can't hear you. But anyway, talking briefly about.
You can't hear me at all?
Now I can hear you.
Okay.
All right. Talking briefly about.
I just saw your DM.
Do you have headphones? Headphones, Andrew. Put headphones in. Uh,
Yeah.
what?
Should be good now.
Yeah, you're good now. So yeah, talking briefly about Loma's grappling, like no one really has proactively grappled her outside of Jinyu Fry in round 3 of their fight. And Fry pretty much got her down and took the back with pretty much zero issue. She just kind of lost position and didn't even really go for the takedowns for most of that fight. And so like I don't really see anything in her background to make me be confident in her grappling here. And on the other side with Loopy, look, the bottom line is my biggest issue with Loopy is just I think she pushes the grappling too hard in a lot of fights. You know, she's got very, very good boxing. I honestly, she's been the better boxer in every fight she's been in. And I honestly think if she just decided she wanted to stand a distance here, she will box Loma up however she wants. But if she doesn't, like go back to the Juarez fight, I think people's minds are miscolored about the Carolina fight. Guys, Luana Carolina is used to fight at 135 pounds. She is fucking enormous. You could see she was struggling to get inside on her, and it's just hard to take somebody down from there. I don't think she was ending up in the clinch on purpose. Whereas here, you know, if she wants to go for Loma's legs, she can. And I kind of, if you look at the Juarez fight, Juarez is probably a better grappler than Loma, and she was getting her down and getting dominant positions with zero issue there. I really think as long as she just doesn't get stuck in the tie clinch this fight, she's going to do her however she wants. I'm big on Loopy. I also took a half unit on her subline plus 850 a little while ago. Andrew, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, so I said I was going to be done with Godinez after that last fight, and turns out 2 weeks have gone by, and I'm already back. Like you, I played the money line. I played the sub. I mean, Loma's grappling is it's just not her world, and Godinez is she's proven that she's very gung-ho on getting takedowns in all of her fights. I think you just were kind of touching on that. She relentlessly tries to grapple whether she needs to or not, and I think if she does that here, she's going to get Loma down and she's going to get her opportunities to sub her. And to your point, I think at range it's not like she's screwed or anything, but I don't really see her accepting that just because I've watched her last few fights and all she wants to do is get a takedown. So yeah, I think Godinez is going to grapple her and hopefully submit her.
I mean, I said it before you got on, but I actually think Loma's pretty screwed if they're at range, to be completely honest with you. I do. I don't really, unless she's in the clinch, I think she's kind of fucked wherever this fight is. But moving on, Andrew, stay with you here. We have Rafa Garcia and a time left. What are your thoughts here?
Dude, I have no read. I was telling you this yesterday. I literally have no read on this fight whatsoever. I think 99% of fights that I break down in my head, I could at least form some kind of opinion. For this one, like I don't really have one, at least not a good one. Like Rafa Garcia, I don't know how Chris Grissmacher ate those shots in the first round, but after a round, he was done. Like Garcia usually looks to get takedowns in his fights, but Levy kind of does the same, and I think he comes from a grappling background, so I don't know. That didn't really give you any new information, but this fight, I have no idea.
I'll tell you who thought Chris Grissmacher was going to eat those shots.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of funny. I don't really. I do have an opinion. Like I think Garcia could be wider, but I don't really want to have money on him. You know, like it's just. Like, I think Levy might be the better technical grappler, but I also get the feeling Garcia is a lot more physically powerful and a better wrestler than he is. And it's kind of hard to, you know, out jiu-jitsu the much better wrestler. But, yeah, I don't know. I like that could – and that's such a big question, too, because if Levy can just out-grapple him, then obviously the line's off. But on the feet, I think Garcia is significantly better, to be honest. Like, you know, Levy throws a lot of kicks, but almost everything is naked. He is so hittable there. I guess I just give a bit more credence to Garcia's level of experience here. I think he's probably the stronger guy. He's my lean, but again, this isn't one that I'm really dying to play. I'll stick with you again here, Andrew. Coming up, we got Tucker Lutz, Pat Sabatini. What are your thoughts?
Do you like my blue light blocking glasses, by the way?
I do. They look like my Xbox glasses.
Yeah, dude. I was like laying down. I saw your DM and I was like, oh shit, let me throw a shirt on real quick and get the mic out. But yeah, I think Tucker Lutz is a very good play as an underdog here. I like his striking. I think Sabatini's a little small. He seems a little uncomfortable on the feet, kind of circles around. I honestly underrated Lutz in his last fight against Aguilar. I thought he looked really good there. He comes from a wrestling background too, so I don't know that Sabatini will really have an easy time getting him down. And once it's there, I mean, Sabatini is obviously very good, but I like Lutz's game. I think it's pretty well put together. I expect him to give Sabatini a hard time stopping takedowns. I think that might wear on Sabatini's cardio a little bit too. We saw him get tired in that round 3 versus Connolly and end up dropping round 3 to Connolly, which, with all due respect, is a pretty bad look. I played Lutz at plus 142. I think there's value still at the current line. I have him as a slight favorite, but a favorite here because there are some questions with the grappling once it hits the ground. But I like Lutz here.
Yeah, so like that's kind of my thing, and why I haven't played it is like I agree with most of your breakdown, and my gut instinct here is that I think Lutz is the much better striker, and I think my gut is he's going to be tough to take down, and even if he gets taken down, he has the couple times I've seen him on the mat done a pretty good job working underhooks and working his way back up and not accepting bottom. But it's just like there's so little footage, and like Sherrod Blackledge is not, Pat Sabatini, if he gets on top of him. And like that's kind of, where I am. Because I'm like, if my read on that is wrong, or if it turns out, plus Sabatini is like a fucking wet blanket, man. Like when he gets on, you're just gonna hang there. If my read on it is wrong, then it's just your bet's fucked, right? Then it's just not value at all. But yeah, I mean, Lutz would be my read. I think the striking is just about as one-sided as the grappling is here, to be honest. And I have a bit more faith in, Lutz being able to work out of those positions or being able to survive takedowns than I do Sab getting stuck on the feet for 10 minutes. Moving on, I'll stick. Do you want to go first or you want me to go first? I think we have different sides here. We got Yanez and Davey Grant.
Yeah, so I'll go first. We rode the Davey Grant train once in the past together. It didn't work out in our favor, but I will say when I watched that fight back recently, it was not as one-sided as people made it seem. Like you could make a case that Grant won 2 rounds against Cheeto, but I digress. I think I like Yanez. I think he's a really good striker. I think Grant took a decent amount, like a pretty good amount of damage in that last fight too. And I don't know, I guy who beats Yanez isn't the type of fighter Grant is. He kind of throws some like lazy kicks and some lazy body kicks, some lazy low kicks. I think Yanez is going to come straight down the middle when he does that. I don't really see much of a wrestling path for Davey Grant. Like I do want to see Yanez tested against a good wrestler. I just don't know that Grant's that guy. Like, I don't know. I just see him getting kind of lit up. I like how Yanez makes reads early. Like, I feel like this is one of those fights where it could be close early, and then Yanez could just kill him in the second. And it's one of those spots where it's like, okay, well, was there value on Grant or was there not? Because it was close at first, and then it was like, okay, Yanez made it. It happened in the Costa fight. Like, Yanez was the betting underdog going to that second round. And that fight was pretty much over if Costa couldn't get him out of there in the next 2 minutes or so. So I'm wondering if something similar could happen here. But long story short, I played Yanez at minus 230. It's like minus 305 now. I wouldn't play him at the current line, but I do think he's a solid 75% here.
Yeah, so it's like depending on when Grant gets his lights turned out here, I'll be able to say he was value or not, because like, and let me be this way, I did bet Grant in this spot. And I do think, like, I feel pretty good about if this fight goes 15 minutes. I feel pretty good about the Grant side and about Grant's ability to win minutes. I guess with Yanez, I'm not like I don't want to say I'm an anti-Yanez truther. Like, I think his hands are about as crisp as everybody makes them out to be. He's got incredibly fast hands. He's powerful. He throws combinations well when he lets them go. But for me, it's like, it's what is he doing in between that? I think he relies far too much on his chin to counter, which I think is a problem. And I think you saw a bit when Costa decided he wasn't going to let him take the center and back him up. You saw him kind of have some issues with those counters when he was just eating hard shots. It's a bit different when Gustavo Lopez is kind of half-heartedly entering into the pocket and letting you just tag him with 1-2s every time he comes in than when somebody's actually throwing with intent, But and so, like, that's my big concern with Yanez. And it's like you go back through his career, and it's like close fight with Milo Johns regionally, he loses. He goes to a split that he wins with Kyle Estrada. And again, it's a fairly low volume fight. Like, Yanez very, very much reliant on other guys to go first. And then, his next 3 fights, he got Brady Huang, Victor Ortiz, and Gustavo Lopez. They just basically feed him 3 bums on a platter. And the next guy he fights that's any good, Costa kicks the fucking shit out of him for 4 minutes, and then gasses out and loses. But what I'm getting at is I'm not saying Yanez is a fraud, but I do think he has so far in fights where he's fought, real fighters, he's fought guys that are or he's had competitive fights. Grant is a guy who is not going to stay on the outside. He's going to come for him, which on the one hand, I think, Grant comes in there with his hands down all the time. He's begging to eat a counter that's going to put him out. It could certainly happen. But I just do have this suspicion with Yanez that when Yanez gets backed up, man, he doesn't really know what he's doing. Like, I thought he looked pretty lost against Costa early in that fight. And I think Grant is going to have the opportunity to land heavy in there. And while I don't expect Grant to have much success grappling, I think he's the only one with the upside there to have some grappling success. And so ultimately, it's like I favor Yanez just because I do think Grant's chin is starting to go. Yanez's style of being a counter striker is such that Grant's going to put himself in harm's way to get cracked. But I do think if he can kind of, if we see that Grant's doing enough to kind of take Yanez's timing off or can tank the damage, I think he's going to look like a huge favorite here. So I'm rolling with Dangerous Davey again here. Going to hope it works out this time. Moving on, Andrew, I'll throw it back to you. We got Tyler Santos, Jojo Calderwood, or Jojo Wood. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I wish JoJo would be better at defending takedowns. I thought I was going to like her in the spot, but I really didn't. Like, I kind of feel like if Santos gets the wrestling going, she's going to get takedowns and hold her down. I also want to make a point. Calderwood had a chance at a title shot against Valentina. Not that she would have had any chance in hell to win, but she screwed herself over by taking another fight. Jiri Prochazka is talking about doing the same thing, and I don't think he should. Anyway, yeah, I think Santos is going to wrestle her here. It's pretty funny. I bet Mara Barella or whatever her name is against Santos like 3 years ago, and she won a split decision. And it's funny because I'm thinking about it now, and I'm like, if they fought now, like I don't think there's any way that I would bet Barella again. But I'm glad I did. I must have saw something back then. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not dying to run to the window and bet minus 350 or whatever on Santos, but I'm also not going to hold a Calderwood ticket and see her on her back 30 seconds into the fight. But I have a feeling you're going to gladly do that.
What would you say if I told you that Calderwood wouldn't get held down for 10 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, if she wouldn't get held down for 10 minutes, I would definitely bet her at this price.
Yeah, so I'm betting Jojo, to be honest with you. I guess I have like mixed views here.
First of all, dude.
No, but like seriously though, so like we have Tyla. If you want to think about it from the fight perspective, it's like Tyla. Like, look at first of all, JoJo. I get it. She's bad on her back. She accepts bottom. She plays guard. None of those things are good things, obviously. But like, she isn't exactly a girl who's just keeling over from a gust to win. It's not as if every time someone attempts a takedown on her, she goes down. Her takedown defense isn't awful. It's just once she gets there, she doesn't get up generally, which is a problem. But like I look at Santos and it's like she's not out here chaining singles to doubles or anything. Most of the time she's looking to work for a body lock and, drag her opponents down. And like, I don't know, man. I kind of think if she clinches up with JoJo, it's not going to be an easy takedown just because, yeah, I mean, that's JoJo's bread and butter there in the clinch. Like, I don't really think it's a lock that, she hits not that she hits takedowns. I think she's likely to get a takedown or two here. Maybe more, who knows? But I do think, you go into the clinch a couple times and eat a couple knees to the body and a couple elbows, and suddenly you're not really dying to go into the clinch anymore. On top of which, it's like Santos isn't like the busiest striker on top. And if you even look at the fight she's had, it's like, I mean, McCann can't grapple at all. Jillian didn't even really want to fight, didn't even really want to get in top position. She was kind of just pulling guard against her and letting her on top. And Roxy, it's just always a binary fight where it's like, if Roxy isn't as strong as her opponent, she's fucked. That's usually the way that Roxy fights go. I do
agree. Bet Roxy against what's her name?
Barber?
No, against the woman who beat Shevchenko, Casey O'Neill.
Oh yeah. Will I be betting Roxy against her? We'll have that conversation when we get there. You know what the answer is, but
yeah, I had a feeling.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I was pretty disappointed by Roxy's performance against Tyla, to be honest with you. And I did better there. But yeah, I mean, I just think Calderwood's a different beast. Like, she's a bit more she's going to make you pay a lot more coming in than any of those fighters are. Her clinch is good, and I think on the feet, like I don't want to say it's going to be one-way traffic, but she's going to outvolume Santos on the feet. I'm pretty confident she's a better striker, and so yeah, I mean, I make Santos the favorite here, but at minus 400, which I think is where this is going. Like that's, dude, JoJo's been fighting like the best girls in the world, man. It's like Tyler Santos beat Roxy, Molly McCann, and Jillian. Like, okay, maybe she top controls her and looks minus 400, but what if she doesn't? Or what if she lands 2 takedowns and they're both late in rounds, That's possible. What if she eats a fucking knee and is like, okay, I'm done clinching up with her? Yeah, I think there's a lot of paths to victory for JoJo here. I'm not going big on her. It's a very small play, but I don't know. I feel like this line is too wide for what Santos has fought to date. Moving on, we got Hani Yaya, Kyung Ho Kang. Any thoughts here?
Not any strong opinions. Like I feel like Yaya is better pure jiu-jitsu guy in this fight and pretty much all of his fights, but Kang's a good grappler himself. He's bigger. He's probably a little better in the stand-up, and he's probably a little bit better cardio. So I don't know, whatever you want to do with that. Like I'm passing here. I taped this the first time and I came to a pass the first time it was booked a few months ago, so I didn't bother with it this time. But that's kind of what I remember. I just remember thinking I didn't really have a great read for it. It's like, I don't know, every Yaya fight, I'm tempted to bet the other guy wins in round 3 because he has gas tank issues, but it hasn't worked out for me yet, so I'm stopping doing that.
If you trusted Hani's gas tank here, would you be considering betting him at the line?
I don't know. I think that maybe small. Like I'd probably have him like minus 175 if I knew for a fact his gas tank was going to be good.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I am because like I think Kang's more technical on the feet than Yaya is, but I think Yaya is a more reliable volume striker, and he's aggressive, man. When he's at distance, I kind of think he's gonna do more, and unless he gets hurt, I somewhat favor him in the stand up, even though I think there's a technical gap, and I also think Kang's probably going to accept the stand up. Like I can't imagine he's gonna try to take Yaya down, We always see this, even though I think a lot of more wrestlers should take these jiu-jitsu guys down. You never see them do it, and I kind of think they're going to be standing. My concern is more, I don't know if Hani can stop himself from initiating the grappling and pushing a pace that he can't keep. Because like, when has he ever decided to keep a range kickboxing match?
Right.
So it's like I kind of think if you're looking to play the fight, look to live bet Kang if Yaya pushes an insane pace, but like. I had some moderate interest on him if he got out to dog money. I think 50-50 is about right because I think it's whoever's going to win that second round, and I think that's going to be probably fairly close and depend on sequencing.
Did you talk about the Pinheiro fight yet?
Yeah, you want to talk about it? You want to go for that before we move into the last 2 fights here?
Yeah, I was just going to say live bet Sam after a round. That's it.
Okay, that's fair.
Brandon Marcos got screwed. I got screwed.
I got screwed too.
We'll save that conversation for another day. But
dude, honestly, Penne was going to be my biggest bet on the slate.
Damn.
I was very confident that if she went for one of those judo throws, she was going to have Penne on her back pretty much every time. Yeah. So that was a pretty big bummer. You want to touch on Chiesa Brady?
No, I'm passing on that fight. You and I talked about it earlier, but I think Brady has a bad habit of putting his back to the cage, which I think Chiesa is not the guy you want to do that against. So like if you put a gun to my head, I would pick Brady, but I don't know. I haven't seen enough of his defensive grappling. Like, typically I'm like, all right, if this guy's a black belt under a credible guy, like whatever, it carries some credence, but like in MMA, it's a little bit different. You kind of have to see it. And his offensive grappling looked good. Like he out-grappled Jake Matthews, who I think is a pretty decent grappler, but it's like, I don't know. You've made these points to me all week, but Chiesa has a very unique style of wrestling / grappling, and it's very effective when it works. So I'm more. I think this fight will tell us a little bit about Brady one way or the other. And I mentioned this to you as well, but I think whoever wins is going to probably look like a hindsight big favorite. Like if Chiesa can just get him down and like do his thing, like he'll look minus 300. But if he can't get Brady down, Brady might light him up on the feet.
Yeah, so I bet Chiesa. I have 2 units on him, and a lot of it is conjecture, to be honest, because like, as you mentioned, we haven't seen much of Brady defensive grappling. But like what I do feel confident in here is like, I hear people say Brady would win the stand-up, and I agree. If they're kickboxing, Brady's going to kick the shit out of Chiesa, right? But like, when has anybody ever been able to keep a fight at range with Michael Chiesa? Like, there's only been one fight in his entire career where he's allowed more than 30 significant strikes landed. The guy is a master at not. Mitch Clark, like way back in the day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an obscure one.
Yeah.
So it's like it's weird, right? Because it's like he does a great job of staying on the outside, completely out of range until he wants to be on you. And you mentioned it, but Brady, when he gets backed up, tends to back right up. And unlike more conventional wrestlers, Chiesa doesn't really need space. He just wants to get his hands on you, right? They can basically get wrapped up with you and try to drag you down. And he's very effective at it. He's actually, outside of the Kevin Lee fight where he got taken down and finished pretty much right away, he's taken down every fighter he's fought in his entire career. And like, there's some very good grapplers in there. Masvidal, Dariush, Trinaldo, he took down a few times. Chiesa's huge, and I know he used to fight at 55, but he's even huge for welterweight. Brady's 5'10", Chiesa's 6'1". The guy is a massive guy who's very strong. And it's possible, look, Brady might just be the better grappler. That is possible. But like, I was looking through Brady's background, and there's just not a lot to contextualize this fight with, from any of the other fights he's had. So it's like a lot of conjecture on my part, but it's like, how many black belts, and you touched on it, do you see end up on their back and suddenly they're playing guard? Even if they're decent wrestlers, like Joe Selecki does it, like, do we know that Brady's not going to, but like, do we know Brady won't do it? Like, it could be a case that Chiesa hits 2 takedowns and that's the fight, right? And he just ends up on top for 10 minutes,
Yeah, I'm having Vietnam flashbacks to Joe Selecki, but also like to your, like, you could make this point for sure. Like, we talk about all these question marks and you're saying like, oh, I know this is a question. You could say I'm getting plus 140 on those question marks. Like, I'd rather in general be the guy on the dog with those question marks. Like, I would kind of talked about this with the Colby fight a little bit, but it wasn't necessarily like about that fight. Everyone's like, oh, we don't know what Colby's been doing the past years. It's like, yeah, if Colby was minus 300, like, I wouldn't touch it with what he's doing this past years. Like, plus 270, and it's like, yeah, like maybe I'd rather the question marks be on my side when I'm on the underdog, which I think speaks to your point here.
And especially when it's like that underdog's been fighting top 10 guys for like 5 years,
Forever, yeah.
It's not like he's losing to them either. So it's like, maybe Brady is that fucking guy. Like, he could be. And like, right, exactly. And if it turns out that like he can out grapple Chiesa and sub him, will I be shocked? No. But I've also seen Chiesa, even in the fights he's lost, have grappling success against pretty much everybody he's fought in his career. So at plus 140, like, I'm pretty happy. It's like you said, there's question marks about Brady's grappling, and I know what I'm getting in Mike Chiesa. Let's ride Chiesa, So I'll throw it to you here first because we're on the same side, and I think you have a decent sized play. You got the main event. It's a main event nobody wanted, if we're being honest here, but there's an opportunity to make money, and so we go to it. We have Ketlin Vieira, Miesha Tate. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, dude, I knew I was going to be doing this after Miesha Tate versus Marion Renault. Like, people were acting like Miesha Tate, it was like the second coming of Jesus Christ. And I was like, guys, I don't know what you're watching here. She just fought a 44-year-old woman who's 1 foot out the door. And like, she looked fine. She didn't look amazing. Like, Vieira is huge for the weight. She missed weight in her last fight. She's she's credentialed in jiu-jitsu. She hits like a man, for lack of a better term. Like, she hits hard as hell. Like, I don't know. I didn't think Miesha Tate looked that good back in like 2016 when she left the sport. Like, she was kind of already like, well, I don't know. It's a nice story and all, but I don't get why this line's a pick. I'm like, I have Vieira as a pretty good size favorite here. Yeah, there's a cardio question mark of Vieira going 5 rounds, but like, even in my head, like, even if this fight, like, after round 2, what is Miesha Tate going to look like? Like, is she even going to be like still there? And if she is she going to have a lot left in the tank, or is she going to be bloodied and battered? So I'm willing to take the chance on that question mark, considering all the other upside on Vieira from strength, size, activity, just the harder striker. Like, I don't know. I think Miesha looks a little uncomfortable on the feet. Like, even against Renault, I don't think she looked amazing on the feet. And like, I don't think she's just going to like blatantly out grapple Ketlin Vieira. So I'm on Vieira at plus 100. I still think there's value at minus 115 or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm also on Ketlin. I am not on it huge. And like, obviously there's the two big questions in my mind. Obviously the first one is, does she have the cardio to go 5 rounds? The second one being, she can play guard and get stuck on bottom. What happens if that happens? To the latter point, my thinking is, and I get it because I kind of said this before the Eubanks fight, because I'm like, Sarge should really just try to wrestle her because Sarge has a great top game and Catlin can't get up. But like Sarge, I was at least thinking, okay, Sarge is a very good wrestler and an absolute physical fucking beast. Whereas, I mean, I get it. Misha wrestles, but like, does anybody really think Misha's a better wrestler than Catlin is? That she's going to like, I'm not saying she can't hit a takedown and ride out around at all by any means, but it's like, Catlin can shoot takedowns too, right? This is not a case of where there's going to be one person shooting takedowns and one person trying to defend.
Catlin does in every fight.
Right, exactly. And it's like, even you go back to the McMahon fight, Sarah McMahon, who is like 3 or 4 tiers above Tate as a wrestler, right? She hits one takedown and dominates that first round, but it's not like she didn't attempt others. And Catlin defended them fine. Ashley Evans Smith is a better wrestler than Misha Tate and could not take her down in that fight. There's just Tate, I classify as like a willing wrestler more so than a good wrestler. Renault provided zero resistance to those takedowns. Catlin is not going to keel over like a gust of wind, to be honest with you. Even the Yana fight, she pulled guard to attack a Kimura. It wasn't like Yana just dragged her to the mat. And Yana, by the way, actually is Catlin's size, whereas Misha is not. And
I'd bet Yana against Misha too.
I would bet Yana against Misha as well. I bet Yana against Catlin, to be honest. Might have gotten a bit lucky there, but
yeah, dude, I don't know how they scored that, but I mean that was clearly the right side, like regardless of the scorecard.
But like even standing, and I saw someone mention in the comments, Catlin's a terrible striker, and it's like I don't disagree. The thing is, Catlin actually will throw at least some volume on the feet, whereas Misha throws none. She hits harder. She's about 3 inches taller, and I think 5 inches longer than Misha is. It's just, I think she's going to absolutely fucking dunk on Misha standing. It's funny because I messaged you before I taped it. I was like, I don't know. Misha striking looked okay last fight. But really, outside of the jab, what did she do? She was literally crow hopping to throw overhand right hands. Like, it's not like she was here stringing together combinations. Like, it honestly, on rewatch, I was just like, that is the worst performance of Marion Renault's career, which understandable with her age. But like she provided nothing on the feet anywhere. I think Ketlin's going to own her on the feet. I think she's going to win the grappling early in this fight. There are the concerns down the stretch of the fight, but you know what? That's what we have live betting for, right? If it actually does look dicey, I'm pretty confident Ketlin's going to fucking maul her for a couple rounds here. What happens after that, I don't know.
I think Ketlin's going to finish her.
She might finish her. She might. Dude, I mean, and like that's the other thing, right? I'm not comparing Ketlin to Rousey, but it's like Misha gets caught in a lot of weird spots when she's in top position. And like, yes, Ketlin plays guard, but she's attacking stuff. Like her sweeping Misha or subbing her from guard really wouldn't surprise me one bit in this fight. So
that was Misha's prime too. She's 35 or something like that now. And I know I don't know, dude. I just can't get behind that idea that she's like this new improved woman at 35 years old. Like, I don't know, dude, like her prime in my eyes was like 2013, just off the top of my head. It's not 2021, almost 2022.
She was faster in her prime. Honestly, like Misha was fun, but I'm not even a huge Ketlin guy. I'm a pretty anti-Ketlin guy, to be honest. It's just the dynamic of the fight. I just, until and unless Ketlin gasses out, I don't see where Misha wins this fight, personally. And maybe she takes over late. That's in play, but even round 3 against Yana, Ketlin got 4 minutes of top time. So it's not like, she was just hanging on for dear life in that fight. So, yeah, I'm with you. Anything else you want to highlight this week before we sign off?
What fight?
Shout out your pod?
What fight did I miss? Oh, I think McKinney sub plus 800 is good against Ziam. I don't know. I thought I would like Ziam pre-tape there, but I actually liked McKinney's chain wrestling in his contenders fight, even though he ate that big flying knee. I don't know. Like, I don't want the reason I haven't played his money line is because part of me doesn't think like he's smart enough. And I know that sounds mean to like go out and actively shoot takedowns. Like he's coming off a bunch of highlight knockouts in a row. And so
did you see his tweet today?
No. Well, I mean, he liked my tweet today, but
he was like, "How am I an underdog when the other guy only wins by decision?"
Yeah, I mean, like, like I think if he could chain wrestle here, like he will look good. But I think if he tries to like get some high rate knockout, like I actually think Ziam's a pretty good striker.
Quinn, what are you talking about switching? Go check what I wrote in Discord at the start of the week. Yeah, I actually like the other side there, but I'm not like overtly passionate about it.
Yeah.
I just kind of think McKinney is going to burn himself out. Any other
Yeah.
spots on here?
Also, you probably are like, if McKinney is going to try to stand with them, which like I'm afraid of, and it's why I haven't played McKinney money line.
Have you taken a look at So I didn't have much of a breakdown for it. Any strong thoughts on Soriano, Yulin Shaw?
I mean, I wouldn't call him strong thoughts. Like, I think Soriano probably is going to beat him up on the feet, but like, I'm not dying. Like, there's so many question marks with some of these like Chinese fighters. There isn't like a ton of tape on it. Dude, it's funny too. Like, sometimes in their regional tape, like, they don't fight anything like their UFC fight. Like, I watched a couple of this Shilanen, whatever his name is, his fights. And like, there's one fight in the UFC where he just goes gung ho for takedowns the entire fight. And then, like, if you go back one fight, he doesn't shoot a takedown the entire time. So, like, I don't know. I think he's going to try to get takedowns here. I think Soriano's probably going to stuff him and just like win on the feet. But yeah, like, again, not playing minus 300 or anything.
Yeah, agreed.
And then
Anyway, guys,
Durden, so
Andrew,
that's it.
thank you for stopping by tonight. You can wait. Do you want to shout out your podcast before you sign off here?
Yeah. So I actually didn't record it today because of a conflict, but I do a show called The Early Edge. Usually it's on Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. I give out my best bets on there. I do the show with Jonathan Coachman, powered by Sportsline. And then on Thursday nights, me and Magic MMA do a podcast. We break the whole card down top to bottom. We've had some good guests on recently. We're gonna have a great guest for the last card of the year. We've got yours truly coming on. But tomorrow we've got Bo Miller. We've had a few good guests. We had Damon Jackson. We had OAM. So it's been pretty fun so far. So if you guys want to hear more of me, that's where to find me. But thanks for having me on as always. And let's get this money this weekend.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Andrew. He's at Bets and Picks MMA, guys. Andrew Gambas. And yeah, guys, if you like the show, drop a like and subscribe. And yeah, check us out next week, 10 p.m. Eastern. Maybe we'll have more than one. We'll see. Take it easy, guys.